So anyway, welcome to the podcast by Paulina
and Gemma,
all about frank, unscripted conversations between friends on everything to do with a balanced, happy life, sometimes business, sometimes personal, often quite ranty, always passionate.
Hi, I'm Gemma. I'm a professional problem solver and leadership coach obsessed with learning about being the best possible human. Reading all the books, doing all the training, trying all the holistic therapy.
Hi, I'm Paulina. I'm an operations and digital marketing manager by day and cat welfare, kitchen witch and tea fanatic by later day. Trilingual, self-development junkie, here to share all of my very many thoughts. So anyway,
today on the podcast, we're going to talk about creative rest, which we're thinking about doing as a series in relation to the 7 types of rest. Which,
yeah, that's right. We're both quite strong advocates of the 7 types of rest. Anyone who knows me knows that I bang on about them all the time. So it might be helpful if you're not familiar with the concept. One, Google it. It's fascinating, and also brings in something that is quite close to both mine and Gemma's sort of values in life and in business, which is sort of balance across the board and quite a comprehensive, holistic approach. So the 7 types of rest, do you want me? Do you want to?
I mean, I can say them. Physical, mental, emotional, sensory, social, spiritual, and creative.
And today we want to talk about the creative rest, just because it's something that's on our minds of recent, and we've set some good time into prioritizing that creative rest.
Yeah,
wouldn't you say?
Definitely. And I think that when you think creative and you think rest together, your brain doesn't immediately go, well, that is rest, because a lot of the time it's going to be doing something, right? You know, whatever that kind of creative outlet is that you've got. It's not necessarily, I think, if you think of rest primarily as lay down and go to sleep, or you think of rest as, you know, maybe something a bit more, I don't know, doing a meditation, you don't necessarily go, oh, I'm going to spend some time writing or going to an art gallery.
It feels like more of the passive things come into mind when you have to go very low activity, quiet, still, and that's the rest. And I think a lot of the time when we think rest, we actually think that physical rest, maybe that sort of meditation rest as well, which we can talk about separately. But it immediately throws to mind that sort of stillness and stopping, right, to rest.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but there is a certain feeling that you get when you have done something creative.
Do tell.
Well, I don't know. It's a kind of...
Tell me about the feelings you get when you do something creative.
Okay, so my context story to this is that I actually have a bit of a negative relationship with creativity from myself. Not necessarily negative, but I think I grew up not being, you know, brilliant at drawing, not being that kind of stereotypical version of creativity. I didn't feel like I had that outlet. You know, I wasn't good at drawing. I wasn't good at painting. I wasn't a sculpturist. I mean, I don't know how many people have got into that. You know, I went along to pottery classes where people were making nice bowls. I'm, you know, creating things that I'd rather not pick up from after they've been fired. So I have always had a little bit of a negative relationship with creativity from myself. And then nowadays I've realised that my creativity comes out in a lot of different ways. And it's more just about my personality, how I am, how my brain works. And sometimes I was on a course last week and somebody said, oh, I really hope that you can put your creative brain to use in a different way, you know, because I was just coming up with all of these bizarre metaphors for things. I love writing, and I used to think, oh, I haven't got an idea for some epic fantasy, so I'm not creative. But I've realised that it's more just about, you know, how those words come out of you and what you see. Or I thought I didn't love going to stand around in an art gallery and looking at paintings. Does that mean I'm not creative? So I think I've always had a little bit of a association with it. And then recently I have really just been trying to lean into that kind of messy creativity, which doesn't necessarily mean, I don't know, getting a load of paint and, you know, throwing them at the wall. But yeah, that kind of unstructured creativity that you're just doing without much of a purpose and what that comes with.
So
and
creativity with not an agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that, I think, gives me a totally different feeling, which is just this sense of, I don't know, the only word that I can think of at the moment that's coming up is a kind of clear-headedness of clarity. Some kind of...
Release.
Yeah, like a leveling within your brain or something going... Yeah, just this...
Leveling, that makes me think of like regulation,
Yeah.
we're talking like regulating our nervous systems. So that actually leads me to, I was going to ask you some more. I mean, I know a lot of these answers, thank you. No, but I love to hear you talk about it, because you're so passionate about it as well. But so, we're interested in, we're wanting to share a lot about the different types of rest, but why? What is the benefit of, for example, the creative rest? Like why bother? Fine, so I'm not going to write the next best novel. I mean, I might, who knows? I'm the wrong person to be saying I won't be doing something insane, because I don't actually believe I won't. But most of us, like you're saying, we might be stuck in this sort of moment of either perfectionism or this myth of an artist that we're not going to achieve, also because it's a myth. So just because we're not going to right now, tomorrow, make millions out of it means today that we don't even bother trying. So a lot of us just take ourselves out of that, not even a race, but out of that as a possibility, which means we don't even think that there's anything else to gain from that creativity for the sake of creativity. So in your experience, what do you find are the benefits to leaning into that? Like why bother? What? Just meditate, for God's sake, woman. Just sit still for a bit.
Why are we even bothering to do it? I think that there's a few things that are around it in terms of the science. Being creative develops your neuron pathways. It enables you to have new innovative thoughts. So it unlocks different perspectives from stuff. It enables you to get out of your kind of thinking brain into a different part of your brain where you're more embodied. Because you can't think your way through it necessarily. You actually have to feel it, the creativity, and let that flow. And so I think, we've talked a little bit before about flow state.
Yeah.
It enables you to get more of that perspective. It also, I think, can over time help you build your self-esteem. So you've got the ability of like continuing to perfect and work on something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to create a masterpiece, but it might just be that you're continually doing something,
So just the act of sticking at something and committing a time to it can be enough to build the feeling that this is worth it. Therefore, I've made the right decision. Therefore, I'm worth it. Yeah,
exactly. And something that my mum used to do and then I started doing after a while is these Zentangles, which, have you heard of it?
No.
What? It's like you basically get a big circle on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And like you can use, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of something large and circular, like a bowl.
Plate.
A bowl. I don't know why that image didn't come to mind. All I could think was a compass. I don't have one. Anyway, so you get a circle and you draw that, and then you basically just draw in the middle of that, and you can kind of segment it off, so do different lines across it and just see what emerges as you fill up that circle. You can just do it like when I've done it, I've just done it with a black pen.
Yeah.
So you just do like things within the circle, and over time, if you do a few of them, you'll see that you start to refine it and come up with different things, different patterns that you like.
Well,
you
like
just
doodling.
kind of,
Do you remember like doodling on the margin of a workbook?
it's exactly like that, except that over time you're just going to start to do, I like that pattern, I'm going to do it again. I like that pattern, I'm going to do it again. Then you have pattern recognition and you can improve upon that, and then it boosts self-esteem.
What was your go-to doodle? What's your shape?
Oh, my favourite is to draw a kind of a bit of a hive, like a beehive. I love to do a beehive.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I love to do a beehive. And I really like colouring bits in different, so doing like different sections and different things. Or like hiding stuff in there. So like hiding little messages within the Zentangle. But yeah, so I think that there's, creativity has the ability to be quite healing for your, for your system. It has the ability to help you balance and to regulate and to get out of your, I'm thinking that the main one is getting out, ironically, of your thinking mind and more into this just flow of something that's just moving through you.
Especially considering, I think, I'm just trying to think of it, we're not trying to sell your creativity. We shouldn't have to, guys. But if you need selling on creativity, maybe this is exactly what we need to do. I'm thinking in particular about, well, just my own condition as a human being, you know, overwhelmed adults in 21st century. The world is on fire and many other things are happening. I'm trying to do my best to look after myself and my mental health and my inner child and my money and. And immediately that becomes overwhelming. And finding a bit of creativity and time to spend on something that does not directly correlate to money, or, you know, there's like pragmatic things that are part of my life admin to-do list, has been quite freeing. And the fact that I'm finding that time over a different task that I should be doing, should having massive quotation marks around it, that has been a big mindset shift as well, because I'm able to go, that I'm prioritizing that. There's a reason why I'm doing that, and it doesn't have to be rooted in what everything else in my life seems to be rooted in. And I think that's almost an act of rebellion in some way, to give that time and go, no, I am giving that time to sit here, you know, with the journal or with the sketchbook or whatever other way. We're just naming these at the moment, but there are many, many, many ways you can go and have a creative rest, which, you know, we can name a few more in a minute. And I think that can be, it doesn't have to be forever, but introducing that as a routine change to mix things up can be a wonderful way to also mix up in that positive way, like dust off your brain a little bit and go, oh, what's out there? Like, how do I step out of this bubble of looking at the same things all the time, or in my own routine, but in a way without having to upset things that work? Because we don't have to throw out things that work. If they work, we can just find new, other joyful, creative, inspiring things. I think it's the inspiration.
Yeah, I was thinking about the concept of awe, like being awestruck by something. And, you know, there's statistics out there that I cannot quote right now.
Gemma's very good at not quoting statistics, but mentioning them.
Yeah, you know, if you want to know, message
Google
me.
it, okay? Just Google it.
Or message me and I'll try and find it. But there's stuff out there about, you know, how little in our daily lives these days that we actually experience awe and get awestruck by things. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know how, when was the last time that you felt truly awestruck by something?
Okay, honestly, yeah, probably a little while. I find it most if I go to like a gallery or watch with movies. I can probably access it with a really great movie, but I wonder if now, because I do rewatch things, we've talked about it a little bit before, it's not so much awestruck anymore, it's more a nostalgia of emotion. Yeah. So it's more emotional rest than anything else. So awestruck, yeah, a while, I'll be honest.
Yeah, and I would say that for me it's like, I don't know, I'm thinking for me awe comes up most in nature.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And then, you know, creativity can then go into that. So, you know, how can you go and really look at a leaf, you know? And in terms of creativity, you like go and you pick up a leaf and you really study that leaf. And you think about how all of the veins of the leaf work and the colours, and that can be a form of creativity, and that can give you a form of creative rest. And also you can find things like that awe-inspiring. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not sure if I would just find one particular leaf awe-inspiring, but
I think
being honest.
Just being honest. I think it's also what's immediately come up in my mind, and that is both helpful and unhelpful thing my brain does is, well, let's define awestruck. But by that I mean I immediately jumped to, well, I was going to mention actually, because I remembered as you were talking about the leaf, that just last week I went outside for something outside the house, and the moon was in like the first quarter, but it was really clear in the sky, it was really bright even though it was only the first quarter of it, and I just stood there for 5 minutes just looking at her. I just wanted to take a moment, because it's something that I've gotten so interested in aligning myself with, and just taking more of like a creative and spiritual interest in the moon and the phases and all of that to do with sort of more life alignment. And I just took a moment really like looking at it, how the clouds were going, you know, was the earth moving, are the clouds moving, everything's moving. All all of that and just all of that going through my brain, and it was a wonderful little moment. But immediately, it's so funny. Like, I want to almost talk myself out of whether that was it awestruck enough, Gemma?
It was.
Does it warrant the name?
It was awestruck. Yeah, actually, now you're saying it. The other day I went outside and it was that perfect morning sunrise of like pink, blue sky.
I love that.
And now what's coming up for me is thinking about, is this still creative rest?
Well, I think something that's worth mentioning at this point is a lot of the rests, yes, we can name, and we will, through the series, name some ideas for each of the rests, but I think a lot of them can overlap, and a lot of them can be quite subjective, because things that are art, which can be creative rest because they inspire you and can feed your art, they can also be spiritual rest, because they can bring that idea of something bigger, beyond us and our little life, or something else out there that's more important. They can be humbling in that way, so that brings a bit of spiritual as well, like some, not doesn't have to be organized religion, but it can still be religious and spiritual, that can be aligned,
totally.
and not, it gets nuanced, but I think there's a bit of beauty in that. It means that you've got the freedom to define what that is, provided that, I think what matters here is that if you write out the seven types that we mentioned, or you Google because you can't be bothered to rewind apparently, then you could try and list it yourself to see if you are in fact hitting all of those over some scale of time. Not in a week, let's be realistic, but over the last 3 or 6 months, over the last month. Let's start with month 3. Have you actually done, all of those? Or are you just sleeping and then waking up and going, oh, why am I so tired?
And I think it's really important to say, from sharing my own experience of negative bias around creativity, that creative rest does not have to be, you creating masterpieces. It's really about engaging with the side of your brain that has some flow to it, that's not analytical, that, wants to explore and be flexible. And in terms of how that relates to your life, how it relates to your business, it unlocks flexibility, it unlocks innovation from teams and from company points of view. Actually enabling people to have creative rest within their lives is going to enable them to be more successful in the work that they're doing and come up with new ideas. So I don't think that creative rest is just, I need to create a masterpiece, or it's about just letting creatives go off and do creative things. It actually can apply to anyone in any context. And I think it's something that probably gets forgotten by, in terms of the different types of rest. I would say, actually, there's probably quite a few that people neglect, but this one, I would imagine that a set of people do a lot of, and then a lot of people don't do it at all.
And there's people who already have it in the center of their lives, potentially because it's, and I quote massively because I don't like the phrase, side hustle on some passion project. My fingers are going to drop off. I'm quoting so hard, guys. I hate these phrases because they minimize the effort, and I think they minimize how important those parts are. Those people who've already centered it, those are the ones who potentially then commit that time over and over again, right? And
like if they work in a creative industry or something.
Exactly.
And actually, we've been doing the Artist's Way, and there's quite a few people in that are creatives and that are feeling blocked. And so for anybody that doesn't know, the Artist's Way is it's a 12-week course. But we're doing it over 24 weeks, and it's about unblocking your creativity
and challenging a lot of those ideas about perfectionism and like meaning and a point to an agenda to why you would do a creative endeavor. There's a lot of challenging of that. There's a lot of digging deep in a very interesting way as well.
Yeah, and they say in that your creativity is really your inner child and the voice of your inner child. So
there was something else I wanted to add to when you were saying in that business context as well. You were saying, it's important to enable people. I would go further. I think it's important not just to enable, facilitate that people have somewhere, like you're saying, don't just send them off and go, oh yeah, but go home half an hour early and do something creative. Be better. Be better than that. Facilitate that creative space or opportunity within your workspace, your co-working office, whatever you've got. Give them that opportunity there. Don't just put that entire responsibility after you've sapped their life force for 8 hours. Go, oh yeah, but you get to go home half an hour early and just go and sort it yourself. Because that's hard.
Yeah,
if you really
I
want
totally
to,
agree with
right?
you
Like
about
give them
that.
that space. Give them that space. In a different way, contextualizing creative rest. If you're like me and you like to know how does the science come in and we can connect the sort of business and personal and creative and pragmatic, I find, and it's something I remember, interestingly, my GCSE maths teacher and A-level maths teachers just popped back into my head. Two different people actually, but both greatly supportive. It was only thanks to them that I love my numbers. I used to hate them back in the old school. But really strangely creative people who were able to show what seems like such a sort of straight cut subject, maths, in such interesting new ways. But they actually got me to like it, and it was the first time that I realized that there is a way that we can have that in synergy. It doesn't need to be an either or. It doesn't have to be a contradiction. And I remember one of them especially used to always say that if you're blocked about something, it used to be about obviously solving a maths equation, but if you're blocked about something, if there's a problem you're struggling to solve, it is genuinely better to step away from it, doing something wildly different, nothing to do with that problem, with its topic, and I find creativity then comes in wonderfully because that will tick all the boxes, and trust that your brain is actually still working away at that problem you were blocked and not able to solve immediately, somewhere at the back. You just need to go do something else entirely to unlock that different perspective, different way of thinking, that you don't even know that your brain is gaining from that creative outpour.
Yeah.
And literally, sometimes a few hours, sometimes the next day, but your brain is so magical in the way that it does these incredible connections that we are not able to comprehend in that purely conscious way.
Yeah, because we
that-
don't get a lot, we don't get a lot of exposure to... Our brains are stuck in patterns where they have the same thoughts over and over and over again, and to unlock new thoughts or to go back into previous thoughts or problem solve requires a different way of your brain processing. And so, coming back to that thing about creating new neuron pathways, if you step away from something, you have the ability to do it. So, I totally agree. And actually thinking about if you were, if you're working with teams, if you're working on your own and you do have a problem to solve, how can you create the space to let somebody go away, get away from it, do some kind of creative rest, and then come back to it?
Yeah. And I find as well on that note, when I've said like it needs to be ideally something a bit opposite to what you were trying to, and a lot of the work, for example, that I do, it's a lot on my laptop, it's very sort of cognitive, is that the right way to say it? A lot of brain work that I do, a lot of thinking, looking, writing and typing, strategizing. And what works really well for me in terms of that, letting my brain do the work in the background and leave it alone to trust do its thing, is actually if I do something really tactile. Like if I'm holding things, if I'm holding things, like if I was literally, I don't know, like trying to mold something or paint something.
So let's go into now then.
So, really
let's
detach.
give some ideas about
Yes.
different types of creative rest. So you're kind of talking about, some kind of, I don't know, like people play around with like Play-Doh. Is that still what it's called? Play-Doh?
Yeah.
You can play around with Play-Doh. And then you could just try doing some drawing with your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, do some drawing with your left hand,
that's
vice
a great
versa.
one. And it's funny.
You can try and do some drawing with your feet. Put a pen between your toes.
Love that.
You can try and draw with your mouth. Put a pen in your mouth. I'm just coming up with different places that you can put a pen.
I love that. See, and that's sort of part of it. With creative rest, I do find if you're ironically stuck for thinking of what to do, just do something you do already, but do it in a weird way.
Yeah.
Just have a bit of fun with it and just learn, try and
Do
remember
things
what it was
with your
like.
eyes closed.
Yeah, like try and remember what it was like, when we said it's connected to your inner child and wanting to have that play. Just play a bit and don't be afraid to just, maybe be by yourself at first when you do it, but don't be afraid to just be a bit silly with it.
Yeah. So I'm also thinking doing a little bit of dancing, creative freestyling.
Yeah.
Put a song on. We've talked about that before.
Yeah. Singing's incredible for releasing emotion as well, and a bit of like pent up
activating
tension.
your vagus nerve.
Yeah.
You can go outside and you could just get your phone and take photos of random things that you see. You could go on a colour walk, so, take photos of different colours that you see.
You could go on the playground and actually just mess around on the monkey bars. I've done that a couple of times. It's really fun.
Yeah, you could do that. Don't know.
And then
when
you realise
the last time I did that.
just how much stronger you were as a child.
Yeah,
how did I used to go the whole way? Just like
in your centre of gravity.
Crazy.
Anyways,
yes.
What else are you thinking?
I mean, we had the classics. Obviously, I'll just name the classics and we can put spins on them. But it's the sort of painting, writing, singing, dancing that are things that I default to. Only because within those, there's just so many variations.
Looking at art as well.
Looking at art. Looking at art can be so peaceful for me. It soothes me. And also, you can then sort of layer things. So you could bring a journal or a notebook to somewhere to look at art. And if you're feeling a bit like, I don't want to, pigeonhole myself into one activity in case it doesn't work for me, and then I'm just going to kick myself for being stuck again after I've spent this time that I didn't have. And, you can easily spiral into a bit of time scarcity there. So rather than go that direction, bring a sketchbook or a journal with you and just have an option. You can, journal while you're looking at art. You can just look at art. You can maybe just listen to music while you're looking at art, bring your phone or your headphones or whatever, or you can then sketch the piece of art you're looking at. So you've got 3 or 4 options. And if you then walk over to a place or walk nearby, then you've got a nature walk as well. So you can give yourself more options and leave yourself a little bit more open. So really, the only commitment that needs to be made is that if you're able to get yourself to a place that facilitates the creative rest, if that's what you need, like an external art gallery, unlike...
Yeah. And to be fair, you could also do things, like you were talking about maths and you can do other things like that. I don't know if things like Sudoku or whatever would fit into creative rest, but...
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, there's, doing a crossword,
Yes. So I've got, I don't know if Gemma knows this, but I've actually got a collection of connector dots, like dot to dots. Did I tell you this? No, they're under my desk.
Doesn't
I'll pull
surprise
them out.
me. Structure.
Right, number by number. I've got a lot of them under the desk. I'll show you another time. But they're just like fun little twists, like constellations, like star constellations as a connector dot, or like a movie or something, really simple, like really fun ones. But it's the fun, and so you do a bit of structure without structure, and that's often enough because I have to follow a different pattern. That means I'm disengaging from the pattern I was trying to put my brain into. To problem solve.
You love a jigsaw.
Love a jigsaw. Oh my goodness, how did I not mention a jigsaw?
Yeah, jigsaw. You're obsessed with a jigsaw.
It's so obvious. It's so easy to not mention the thing that you take for granted, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, jigsaw, puzzles, love it.
Jigsaw, puzzles, yeah, me too. I don't know, I saw someone doing cross-stitch yesterday.
Oh yeah, like cross-stitch embroidery stuff. I
dabbled
in that.
Making a candle. Anyway, I feel like there's so many, and there's so many for different types of people, things that people are interested in.
Guys, baking. Sorry, final thing, but like baking and cooking, I find that can be really creative for me, and that can be a lot of fun as well, because you don't have to stay within certain very strict parameters. You can play with it, and I think the play, I keep saying it, but I think it's important to have that freedom. If you go from like one structure to another structure, sure, it's different, it's a step, but it will then encourage you to go, could your next step be a little bit further away from that structure each time?
Yeah, so undo the need for perfection, undo the need to show anybody what you've done, undo the need even necessarily to have any kind of output.
Or any kind of outcome, in fact, right?
Yeah.
Like in any way. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Okay, well, I think we've waxed on about creative rest enough, and I feel like I need to now go and do something quite creative. I'm feeling inspired.
I'm sure there's so many creative rests that you guys are yelling at your podcast players as we speak that we did not mention.
Yeah, message us. So give us some ideas.
We'd love to know them. You can comment them below as well. Or if you know me, just message us. We'd love to know. But we will... I think this is something we're both passionate enough and knowledgeable enough, thank you very much, on the 7 types of rest, that I think it would be a great idea to cover it as a series and just really explore how they all fit together into, that balanced, happy life that we bang on about in the intro.
Yeah. Love it.
Right?
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm going to go and get messy creative.
Love it. So anyway...
So for anyone that has stuck around till the end of this episode, We have a little bit of an outtake.
Little gem.
Little gem.
Little outtake. Gems, little outtakes for you guys. Enjoy.
Enjoy. So we've got physical, mental, emotional, sensory, creative, social, and spiritual.
What happened there? You know, this is just an audio medium. Okay, cool. Yeah. These are the 7 types of rest.
Surely we need to cut this out.
Do you want to go again? We can go again. It's